Hi, Michael. Good afternoon to you from India, and thanks a lot for joining us today on BloombergQuint. While the spread of coronavirus continues to rattle global equities, we've seen how the equities have been behaving across regions so far this week. Do you think the damage has already been done with respect to markets, or there is more to come, as a lot of reports indicating that the global growth will be impacted now due to this?
Well, obviously, it depends on how the situation with the virus pans out. That's a no-brainer. But were we to continue to see the trend in cases and deaths and the global spread move in the direction that it has been over the past few days, I think that the market damage we've seen so far is merely just the start. I mean, okay, we're off 7% so far this week in major European and US indices, 6 to 7%. But we were up more than that so far this year anyway, on the back of, frankly, nothing. And that doesn't even begin to factor in just how bad this could get if we are to see large sections of the global economy shut down in the same way that China has been, with tourism and trade collapsing. That's far more than 2-3% down days you're talking about there in any real world.
Right. Michael, you said there is more to come, so there could be more damage which could be seen for global equities. We were just reading that for U.S. market alone, it's wiped out $1.7 trillion in market cap in last 4 sessions. How much more damage do you see in terms of drop in key indices there and also for other markets?
Well, first of all, in terms of 1.7 trillion, I could care less what the number is. It's about 6 or 7% in terms of the headline index. And obviously, the higher the index goes, the more dollar value there is attached to a smaller percentage move. All I can say to you is just imagine if the U.S. Center for Disease Control is correct, and I fear they will be, in their assessment that there will be, major pandemic outbreaks of coronavirus, COVID-19, somewhere in the continental U.S., and that you will see major U.S. cities having to go into the kind of lockdown we're now seeing in Milan, for example, in Europe. Were that to occur, and you have a 27-day incubation period for this virus to try and bring it under control, you're talking about a month's worth of shutdown if you can manage to control the thing in the first place. How can that not have enormous downside potential for U.S. equities and hence for global equities? I'm just frankly gobsmacked that even by the standards of how stupid financial markets have been over the past couple of years, that there are still people out there thinking that the damage is already priced in because they've gone down 6 or 7% in 2 days.
Yep. In fact, Michael, that is going to be my next question with regards to whether or not short-term equities are set up for a big volatility swing, and the fact that there's an extremely narrow breadth for equity markets which have been accompanied by a polarized positions in other financial assets. Do you think that that's going to take center stage now, aside from equities?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the tension between the bond market and the equity market, I've argued consistently that the bond market is always right and the equity market is always wrong. It may take a long time in each of these instances before the bond market gets to be proved right, because there's always a lagged effect, particularly when you have central bankers throwing away free money at everybody and everything, thinking that somehow this will keep propelling growth forwards. Now, it does do absent a killer virus, but as soon as you get a virus coming along, that means everyone stays at home, either voluntarily or are forced to, therefore they're not buying anything, and demand is destroyed. And at the same time, supply chains are destroyed because nobody's working, so you can't get intermediate inputs and you can't produce goods to sell them on to other people. You can price equities wherever you want, in theory, and central banks can throw as much cash into the economy as they want. It doesn't do any good. I mean, if you were to give $1,000 to everybody who's under lockdown at home during a virus, what are they going to do with it? Eat it.
That's what Hong Kong's at.
It doesn't do a lot of good until things return to normal.
Yes. In fact, that's the other point, is if at all, even when we're talking about China and the kind of stimulus that they're talking about, it needs to come on the back of some amount of certainty that employees are going to get back to work, factories are going to start, and then the stimulus makes sense. Otherwise, it's just, money put to waste.
Absolutely. I mean, the stimulus even then makes sense provided, as I said, as we both agreed that the virus is permanently sorted out. If it goes away for a few months and comes back in the autumn, then you've got a W-shaped pattern, where down, up, and down again, which is not any way to run the global economy either. But I remember also, even this stimulus comes at a cost. Fiscal deficits are going to blow through the roof. Where's the money coming from for that? Is it going to come from central banks again? Okay, great. Well, we've tried money printing in the past to get our way out of real problems, and it's never worked out too well for mankind generally. So I don't see why it will work out better now. And the structural issues that will linger after this of an overly powerful central bank and an overly powerful government having gained the power to decide who lives and who dies during the crisis, financially speaking, is going to linger on for a very long time. If you think markets were corrupted by the global financial crisis, imagine what's going to happen during this virus crisis. And I don't see that being positive for anything other than maybe the largest stocks, who are probably going to be too big to fail in exactly the same way that they were back in 2008, 2009. But whether there's actually any real underlying value in that is a very different question.
Well, maybe the inverted yield curve signals of last year are getting proven right by this virus. Michael, just one question. If indeed the bond markets are right and the equity markets are taking time to reason with that, how much downside do you foresee? Is it possible to predict that?
Downside for equity markets?
Yes.
Well, throw a dart on the board. As I said, equities are supposed to, in the world that we grew up with the textbooks that we grew up reading, equities are supposed to be, or the price of equity is supposed to be discounting a future flow of earnings, isn't it? Well, what are your earnings if you don't have any kind of economy? What are your earnings if everyone's sat at home, bunkered up, wearing a face mask, not doing anything while they wait for this virus to pass? And, God forbid it should become even worse like Spanish flu did 100 years ago. Obviously that's a tail risk, but it's a tail risk one would presume that anyone rational would want to be pricing into any equity at the moment, given if you're wrong, the value is effectively zero, isn't it? If people can't go out and do anything, to produce anything or buy anything, where are your earnings? Your earnings are zero, so therefore your price should be zero, surely. But obviously the market isn't going to trade like that, particularly with central bankers pretending that they're virus experts as well as being economic experts, and in fact they're neither. And throwing more and more liquidity, hoping that liquidity is greater than transmissibility. But, transmissibility in terms of how rapidly this virus spreads, and fatality in terms of how many people it kills, I fear, are going to outrank liquidity. And central banks are going to be shown to be, the emperor with no clothes.
And, all right, got that. Michael, it was really great to get your thoughts on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.